things that parents all around Australia tell me is that it's very, very challenging these days to fit everything into your day. It feels like there's just not enough hours in the day to put all of the compliances into that every Australian parent has to commit to. There's taking kids to sporting events, there's taking them to music, there's getting them to school, there's getting them home from school, there's getting them to bed on time, and it feels like you just haven't got any time for yourself, let alone teaching your kids some of those really big things that we as parents have as a fervent ambition. Things like teaching our kids empathy, teaching them responsibility, teaching them respect. It's really hard to fit that into a really busy day. What I want to put to you is that don't worry about the big stuff, that it's now about the small stuff. What we want is for our young people to learn that those big labels, such as respect, are built upon hundreds of little behaviours that kind of accumulate, that kind of add up into that label rather than going from the big label down. In fact, if I was to ask my junior self, my 12-year-old self, to be more respectful, I would probably have a working definition of respect that was something like respect is people being nice to me. If people respect me, they're nice to me. That, of course, isn't respect. Respect is people who push us a little bit as well. The people that we respect, and if you were to think back for a moment to the teachers you had in your own school experience, who you respected the most, were probably the ones that you would describe as being firm and fair. They had expectations of you, and they supported you to reach those expectations. So what we want to do is to have our children build a working knowledge and a working definition of big terms like respect by having worked up to it through the hundreds of possible behaviours that could reach that label, that could comprise that label. In your house, how could this look? For instance, you might say one of the things we're going to bring in, one behaviour at a time, is we're going to bring in the behaviour of our kids potentially asking politely to leave the table. So when they finish dinner of an evening, they might now have to say to you, may I please leave the table? What you get in that opportunity is a moment where you get to say, thank you for asking so politely. That's really respectful for when you do that. And the kids in their head go, oh, okay, that's one little behaviour that she described as being respectful. Wonder what else? And you get to introduce one behaviour at a time, a whole series of possible behaviours that could fit under that respect label that eventually will have your kid realise that being treated with respect is about stepping up to a reasonable standard of conduct and helping people to be able to step up to that standard with you. Big labels, big terms like respect, like responsibility and like empathy are difficult for our kids to understand. What we need to do is to get more specific. We need to take on that horribly difficult word to say of specificity. And if we can bring a little bit of specificity into our homes, we can fit in the behaviours that will allow us to make those big banners a reality.